Well, I mean, these elections shouldn't be taking place at all. And most people, including me, find it extremely hard to understand why just about 3 years after the referendum of June 2016, when the UK voted to leave, we should be taking part in European elections. And by the way, the MEPs are ostensibly being elected for a period of 5 years. It's a complete nonsense. It shouldn't be taking place. And it's a total incompetence of the British government. And in particular, Mrs May, who ought to take full responsibility.
You won't be standing again?
No, I won't be standing again, partly because, mostly because I don't think these elections, for the reasons which I just suggested earlier.
You stood with UKIP at the time, the historic success in the 2014 elections. Yes. You had 24 MEPs.
Well, it was a bit more than that. It was the first time that any political party, except for Conservatives or Labour, had topped the poll in a national election in the UK since 1906. So it was a bit of a historic moment. But of course, the UKIP then was totally different from the UKIP now.
You say the UKIP then was totally different from the UKIP now, but of course the UKIP then was what opened the doors to the UKIP now. Absolutely
not. No, it's been hijacked by Mr Batten, who was elected unopposed, incidentally. There was no election, and he's let in some very undesirable and very loutish elements. And I never wanted to have anything to do with them, and I actually left and resigned from UKIP over a year ago.
So obviously not voting UKIP.
No. I should be voting for the Brexit Party, and I think it's important that the Brexit Party does well, so that the establishment parties are given a good, so the establishment parties are made aware that that referendums just can't just be ignored by long-time career politicians. How
difficult has it been for you as the MEP for Gibraltar when Gibraltar voted 96% Remain?
Well, of course, that was partly because the government of Gibraltar wasn't exactly neutral. But I think what I've tried to do is quietly, honestly, and to the best of my abilities, to explain to people of Gibraltar that there is nothing to fear. In fact, Gibraltar-Spanish relations are much better handled country to country, in the jargon, on a bilateral level, without the EU interfering. The EU has not been helpful to the people of Gibraltar at all.
Before we move on, I know that you've written a book that you're about to publish, but before we move on, just one more question on the European parliamentary elections. Do you think that there will be an indicator of anything, of perhaps just even the Brexit mood?
I think there'll be a big... Well, actually, depending on the result, they could be a big indicator. If, for example, the Brexit Party, a party that was only founded about 4 weeks ago, tops the poll, and that's what the polling is indicated, that will be a huge, huge statement in the face of the establishment parties. And hopefully they'll think again in their attitude to Brexit and actually what they're doing in the House of Commons, which frankly has been a shambles.
What sort of statement would it be if people didn't vote?
Well, that would be highly understandable as well, because, as I've said, that these elections shouldn't really be taking place at all. But as they are taking place, I think it is important that people do vote.
Talk to me about your book, because rather brave to write a book on Brexit when we don't know the final chapters.
Well, I've actually written a book. It took me about 5 years to do it, called Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Brexit But Never Dared Ask.
Brexit for Dummies.
Which will be available on Amazon after the European elections are over. And but the last 4 words of the book are, "and the rest you know."
Which of
course nobody knows exactly what's going to happen.
And it focuses mostly on trade, which is what you've been...
Well, there's 85, I don't want to put anyone up, but there's 85, there's more than 85 charts, tables and statistical analysis. It's 40% of it is about trade, 60% of it not about trade, because my point is that the discussion about Brexit and the EU has always been long on emotion and short on facts. And my book is a tiny attempt to try and put that right from the vantage point of now 9.5 years in the European Parliament, with just a few more months to go, a couple of months to go, a few weeks to go.
Weeks to go. William Dartmouth, thank you for joining us.
And thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.